again. So, hi, it's Zoe. In my last video, I talked about the German training scale and a bit of the translation between the English and the German, and picked up some problems I've seen in there. So what I wanted to talk about today is a little bit about how we actually go about applying the training scale when we're training our horses. So it's all nice in theory having this sort of nice pyramid, and you get your horse, you get your rhythm, and then you sort of build the steps on the top. Lovely. Sounds great. On a day-to-day basis, how do we actually go about applying that? So there's kind of two angles on this, and one is having it that training scale as like a long-term view. So you're going to start off making sure you kind of get your rhythm, and you're going to end up eventually with some lovely collection. So that's kind of there is a sort of long-term aspect to how we'd interpret that training scale. But what I think is more interesting is how we deal with it on a day-to-day basis. So when you're training your horse, kind of how you can use the training scale as a little bit like when you're having issues, it's kind of looking down the training scale and going, okay, trying to make sure you're not, when you have a problem, trying to work on a problem at the top of the pyramid when actually you've lost the bottom. So say you're teaching any movement, you've asked your horse forward into, say you're trying to teach them shoulder in. You haven't done it very many times, you're trying to teach them shoulder in, and you feel like you're not really getting any a proper straightness. So in shoulder in, straightness would be, that nice curve on the shape of you moving. So it's a bit of a funny when you're not talking about like being dead straight, but say you're trying to get straightness on that shoulder in, as in the horse's body follows the curve that you want it to, and it's able to move laterally sideways. And so you're in your shoulder in, and you're thinking, oh, my horse isn't straight. But actually what often happens when I'm not getting that curve. What actually often happens when we are training a new movement, we're focused on getting like the shape or whatever it is, we're really trying to get like, I want that shoulder in shape, and what we fail to realize is because the horse isn't used to using his body in that way, actually something at the bottom of the pyramid has fallen out. So because he's trying to say you've got this, my horse isn't straight. Well, maybe if you think about, if you focus on the rhythm, it might be as fundamental as that. Because they've like moved their shoulders over and they're trying to work out what to do, actually it might be that they've completely lost their rhythm. They're not say you're in a walk, and they're not actually, if you were to sort of, as an outside observer, it's often so much easier, but if you were to look at that, look at that footfall, listen to that footfall, it wouldn't be a nice 4-beat rhythm anymore. So you can be trying to sort of straighten the horse into this shape that you're asking for. Even on a circle, the horse is falling out through the shoulder and you're trying to straighten it up. But actually, if you're trying to fix a problem that's higher up in the pyramid, in the training scale, when actually you haven't realised that something's sort of dropped out in the bottom, that's what you need to sort of quit what you're doing and re-establish what's at the bottom. So it's really a case of learning how to prioritise your problems. I've seen Anya Baran has written a really good article on this that I saw somewhere before, about you need to work out what your priority is. So, if you're trying to do, another example, you're trying to do a circle on a young horse, and the horse's nose goes up in the air. Okay, so that nose going up in the air, we go, oh, we've got a problem with his nose up, and so, we might try fiddling with the hands to bring it down or change the bend or something like that. If you think about our training scale, we start with rhythm. So, if we've got any problem, you almost want to think, right, okay, have we still got rhythm? Because if you haven't, you need to stop what you're doing and get the rhythm back. So you get your horse back to that rhythm, and then you can get this, if your horse is tensed up, anything higher up the scale is impossible. Remember my last video, if you've not seen it, go and look at my previous video about translating the training scale from German. So we have, in English, it'd be written down as like relaxation, but we're talking about this Losgelassenheit, this loosening over the back. So if your horse is tensed, you now can't do any of the higher elements in the scale, because you're trying to get, because as soon as the horse tenses, its back goes tight and it puts its head up in the air. So you can be like, oh, I've got a problem with the outline. No, you've lost. Go further down. You're not talking about that sort of connection with the reins, the Annäherung, as we have in the German one. Your problem is from underneath. If your horse is tensed, it can't give you a nice contact because it's not going to be able to relax and lean down into the reins. So you kind of need to use the training scale on a day-to-day basis as it's like a troubleshooting. So if you kind of think, what's the lowest rung on the scale that I don't have? So say your horse has still got a nice rhythm, he's going along, anyway, say you're in trot now, you're trotting along on your circle, and then you feel him go out of the outside shoulder. Okay, so we'd say, okay, that's a straightness problem. He's gone out the outside shoulder. Chances are there's also some kind of tension there. You've probably lost that nice feel on the reins. He's gone out the shoulder and you like lose some energy out the side. So you haven't got your nice even feel on your contact probably either. But quite likely the problem as well, you've got tension, it sort of curve snowballs. So if you think, yes, maybe, or you've still got a nice contact, but he's just a bit squiffy, that's okay. Now you can carry on working on your straightness. But if you your horse loses the outside shoulder and also sticks his head up in the air and goes tenth through his back, but still has a nice rhythm. So the rhythm has stayed. Step one, we're good. But actually, if he's gone tenth through the back, trying to straighten him up isn't really going to work. Now, obviously, there's some element of which by getting the correct bend and things suppling, that's how you get the softness. But you don't want to think about it as, okay, it's a straightness problem, I just need to sort of shove that shoulder back into line. Because actually, if all the tensions come up, you need to kind of stop aiming for the higher rung on the training scale and work towards getting that relaxation back. So you might need to come off the circle. This is where it becomes tricky in dressage tests, because you lose a problem, you're like, well, I need to stay on my line because that's the dressage test. In schooling, if your horse, you're trying to, and it depends, it's a bit situational. So if you lose the outside shoulder a bit, but he's still loose, you might go, come on, bring your shoulder over and you'll be fine. If you lose the outside shoulder and its head goes up and its back tenses, forget the circle, go back out on a straight line, go, okay, rebalance, you might need a bit of a half halt, just go, okay, we'll just organise yourself, let's get back into a nice rhythm, and then you try again with your circle. Example with a much more experienced horse would be, you're trying to teach some kind of really collective movement, you're trying to do a piaffe or a canter pirouette or something, you think, oh, I'm just not getting the collection that I want. Very often, because we're asking for something difficult, a really much more collected movement, the horse will tense through the back. And so you then, again, you need to, if you get that tension, you kind of have to stop aiming for that really high level of collection, which is why, you'll see people, when you're training canter pirouettes, you might need to do a very big circle with that sort of movement, rather than trying to be like, all right, I must keep him on the, keep the haunches really in place, and that's what's important. If you can't get that level of collection at that difficulty yet, it's better to sort of come back into a smaller circle. You almost end up doing like a vault with your haunches in almost. So you've got, you want to keep the exercise that you can, if you're working on collection, you need to make sure the exercise is easy enough that they can build up all the steps underneath it, because otherwise you kind of lose the essence. And that's where as well, if you try and hold them in that shape to try and force them to do that movement, that's where you start getting damage as well. Maybe no names and pointing their fingers to some of the top level riders that you'll see with really tight reins, and they've gone, right, the points are for a piaffe that's really properly in place, so they're holding on the horses' mouths. We get all these horrible things we've been seeing with blue tongues and everything else, because they're trying to force the horse into a position that actually the scales of training aren't there underneath. And you can really see it, I've been to see Manolo Mendez training with people, clinic, really fantastic experience, and he was teaching these horses to piaffe, and he was making sure they were, he was letting them, saying, let them move forward as long as they stay relaxed, and slowly you can increase the collection until they're on the spot. And that's what we need to sort of, when we're applying the training scale, it's very much like a prioritizing your problems. If the rhythm's gone out the window, forget it, go back to, bring them back to walk if you have to, and just get them like, right, organize your legs, let's try again. And there's nothing wrong with, I think people worry about letting a horse get away with things if they're not doing what you ask, and you say, right, stop, try, don't be afraid to do that. Don't think I really need to make him do this exercise, because chances are he's not doing it because he doesn't understand, or, you know, it's uncomfortable, or, you know, is just not strong enough to do it yet, isn't coordinated enough maybe. So give your horse a break, give your horse a chance to go, right, okay, this isn't working. Let's get back to, you know, drop down a bit to something where we can be. So say you're working on your collection, your really nice pinnacle, and you lose, you know, the rhythm out the bottom. Just stop what we're doing, get yourself balanced, get your legs into order, and let's try again. Make life a bit easier for our horses. I think there is a bit of an exception to this when you're very first teaching a movement, the first, you know, the very first or second time you're doing it, very early on with a new movement. Say the first time you're asking for a lateral movement, there is a point in the sort of teaching stage where what you're trying to say is, when I put my leg here, I want you to move away from it. Say you're teaching a horse lateral movements for the first time. When I put just one leg on, I want you to shift your bum over, essentially. So you're just trying to teach them, I want you to move away from your leg. And at that, you know, I want you to move away from this leg. At that point, you may lose the rhythm, because they're going, really, they're trying different things. Go, do you mean this? Do you mean this? And they might go, oh yeah. Okay. And when they do something that's vaguely close to what you're asking for, you go, oh brilliant, well done, good pony. And you know, they might have lost all rhythm. Their head might be up in the air. You know, it might look like they might be pulling a face, all kinds of things swishing. You know, but as soon as they do something that's an approximation of what you're trying to ask for, yeah, you reward that, and you will have elements when you're teaching brand new stuff that the horse doesn't, it's mainly when they don't understand yet. They might be doing all sorts of strange contortions, and you need to teach them, right, that means move sideways, or whatever it is. And then once you've got that button, you would try to avoid losing, you know, so the very first thing you've got to teach, essentially this comes back to the training skills as well, the first thing you've got to teach is, this is what this means, and then you will work on getting it back in your rhythm, and then you can work on doing it without being tense. So it's almost every movement that you teach, you'll go through that process as well. So yeah, that's another way you can apply it. So you've kind of got your three, I said two at the beginning, I've come with another one, 3 ways you can apply the training scale. One is as a general to your training. Are you, you know, you sort of are working towards the top of the pyramid, where you'll have beautiful, lovely collection, and you can do piaffe and pirouettes and all sorts of lovely things. Then you've got the kind of, in every movement, this kind of troubleshooting. You know, if I run into a problem, I need to sort of go down the rung until I get to the first piece that's not broken, which could be anywhere. It could be, I've completely lost my rhythm, I need to start again. It could be, you know, you're working on collection and you just think, oh, I just haven't got quite enough impulsion. So in a very collective movement, you go, oh, I'll ask for a bit more oomph, and then I can collect again. So it might be very subtle tweaks, but it's kind of this troubleshooting. So that's the second use. And actually I think the third one is, every time you teach a new movement, you kind of work up from the bottom. So you don't try and worry about connection, contact, headset, outline, whatever you want to call it, when you're teaching a new movement, because you need to start first with, this is how we do it, and you know, you then go, right, we won't be able to do this in some sort of a rhythm with some sort of relaxation first, and then the later steps come. So you absolutely wouldn't be, you know, looking for collection in your shoulder end to begin with. Obviously they do need some kind of weight on the hind end to be able to do it, but it's very much, yeah, building blocks for the whole training, building blocks in sort of troubleshooting moments, and building blocks with new exercises. So I hope you find that helpful, and maybe something to apply next time you're working with your horse.